Yep, I started the recording.
So we'll move next to the agenda review. Okay, so after we open it up for public comment and approve the minutes, we're going to have a presentation on the closeout of the benefits cow security incident from Rachel and Laura. After that, going over the results and the final acceptance for the cow cause migration. Arnold and Dan will be providing that. Rachel and Dan are going to go over the CalWIN support services implementation and an update on where that stands in terms of final acceptance. Just as Cal, we have a few updates from landowner and Chris on the ROI update, and then the release highlights and as well as some of the, oh, this thing is difficult to hear. Can you hear me? Is it still difficult to hear?
We had a few people come into the room late. Sorry guys, the background noise should go back out.
Can you hear me? I mean, I'm looking right up, talking right now, so can you hear me? Do I still sound far away?
I can hear you. You sound fine.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll try to use my mom voice. April 2024 metrics, and as well as the update on the OCR for document upload will also be under the benefits file update. After that, Teresa, Lisa, and Jason will give us a release and policy update on the continuous coverage unwinding and where we are with that, the CalSAWS release highlights, workload assignment updates as well. We have quite a few updates on the contact center. Arnold and Mike will be providing that, and Sean will be giving a more brief report status update for those who heard the more robust one last month. The Fresno Gen AI update, Sarah will be providing, for those who haven't been aware of the pilot that's going on in Fresno around Gen AI. M&E risk will be after that. Arnold, Rachel, Peggy, Karen, and Jared will be providing that procurement update from Tom. Don Wilder, the return mill overview and the status of that, and Peggy will be talking about the road shows and, some of the successes and what we can expect coming up on the M&E road shows. And then we'll open it up for the partner updates from OPSI, CDSS, and DHCS, and the regional updates from our steering committee members. And with that, I will turn it back over to Cindy.
Okay, thank you. So this now is the public opportunity to speak on any item not on the agenda. Public comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, except that a speaker using a translator shall be allowed up to 6 minutes. The public may also speak on any item on the agenda by waiting until that item is read, then requesting recognition to speak. All lines will be muted when the meeting begins. To unmute, click the microphone icon or press star 6. Are there any public comments? Again?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, thanks for the chance to speak. This is Jennifer Tracy with the CalSAWS Advocates Group. As part of our advocacy priorities, advocates and assisters plan to identify opportunities to improve language access for consumers using Benefits Cal. We chose this goal in part based on research from CDSS's Civil Rights Unit that shows that of the people most likely eligible for CalFresh and least likely to be enrolled, the primary correlating factor is being non-English speaking. This suggests that language barriers are one of the most significant contributing factors to lower enrollments among these populations. Additionally, we are prioritizing language access because of its intersection with equity issues such as race and ethnicity, age, and immigration status. According to the requirements list for Benefits Cal, the downloadable forms are listed as part of the help section in the requirement FN 39. Requirements FN03 and FN04 state that the features in the help section should be translated into threshold languages. Recently, one of our sister partners raised the concern that Benefits Cal only offers forms for download in 2 of the threshold languages. Indeed, upon review, while the website does allow the user to toggle to the 19 threshold languages, the only translated forms are Spanish and English. Even when CDS and DHCS offer the translated form, it's only provided in English. The website does not even provide a link to the state website where the translated forms can be accessed. It appears that the intent of FN03 and FN04 was not met. People are unable to get necessary forms in their language. Further, this violates the requirement in Welfare and Institutions Code 10823.1 through 3 to minimize client burden, because it adds burden and mental load to consumers when a critical website for maintaining benefits appears to provide information that is actually not there. It's been almost 3 years since Benefits Cal was launched. There is still no timeline for this defect to be addressed. We are urging the project leadership to address this barrier and to prioritize access for non-English speaking consumers whenever possible. We also encourage processes that will ensure that the intention of a requirement is understood and met so that the website can successfully deliver on services as intended. Ideally, the project will also provide metrics that will help us understand how to better invest resources towards these goals. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to any updates the team can provide for when this defect will be remedied. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for those comments. And any other public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then we'll move forward then to the approval of the minutes and a review of the action items. Oh.
Good morning. This is Sandra Bolin. I move to approve the minutes.
Yes.
Elaine Martinez, I second.
Can't hear what you're saying.
Who was the second?
Elaine Martinez. I second.
All right, Clarissa?
I approve.
Anna?
I approve, but I wasn't there at that last meeting, but I approve in.
Spirit? Eduardo?
I approve.
Rachel?
I approve.
Celia?
I approve.
Cindy?
I approve.
We already have Elaine. Alberto?
Alberto, we see that you're on, but we haven't gotten any audio.
This is Albert. I don't know if you're talking to me, but I approve.
Thank you.
And then Sandra, please, the one made the motion. LaShonda?
I approve.
Okay, and is it Catherine or Olga, or did either of you pop on?
Yes, R6 approves.
Is that Catherine?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, the minutes have been approved. And did we have a review of an action item? Or was it, that was, yeah, something.
The only something that I moved is off the agenda.
Okay, great. Okay, then we will move next to the informational items, benefits, cloud, user account, security, incident, status update. Long title.
Perfect. Thanks, Cindy. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to provide an update as to where we are, and Laura is going to join me here on the security incident, with a focus specifically now that we have completed all of our analysis. Want to pivot really to the future here around where we are with reactivating accounts. So folks should be familiar with the funnel. We've talked about it in the past in previous meetings, but wanted to focus on that bottom number, which represents the accounts that were potentially compromised where we did see activity specifically in Benefits Cal with someone logging in. We aren't able to identify specifically who logged in, but we know that someone had logged in. Of that 19,000 plus accounts, we had identified that 13,505 have at least one active case. The rest of them may have a case that has been closed. So we know that out of that population group, 13,505 have an active case. When we looked a little bit further, not represented on the slide, but wanted to share this. Out of that group, we were seeing that about 5% of that 13,000 plus are what we would call frequent users of Benefits Cal, which means that they're accessing Benefits Cal more than once a month, which is likely they're checking their EBT balance or checking the status of their case. So of those that have been, of the cases, I would say, or the accounts rather, that have an active case, we have to date reactivated 3,626. So there is a delta of a little less than 9,000 that are yet to be reactivated. And we wanted to talk a bit through the plan forward for that 9,000, recognizing that not everyone was going to respond to the prompts that we had sent out to attempt to reactivate their account, because likely they're only going to come and visit Benefits Cal if they need to renew their benefits, or if they need to upload a document or report a change. Just creatures of habit, people are going to do it based off of their particular life circumstance. Laura, anything to add here before we walk through what we're going to look at going forward?
No, just to highlight that, taking a look at these metrics, we want to be more prescriptive with our communication, so that we can make sure that folks who may have some activities coming up are reminded that, you know, they would want to reach out and make sure that their Benefits Cal account is reactivated, knowing that those folks that are associated with all closed programs, we definitely don't want to be reaching out to those folks, but again, we want to be prescriptive with our communication and timely with our communication, also aligning and understanding that there's work on the county side to be able to assist these individuals. So we want to kind of stretch that out over this timeline that Rachel's going to walk through on this next slide. Thanks, Rachel.
Perfect. Laura always gives me the best segues. So what will that look like going forward? We want to focus on, as Laura had pointed out, tailoring the communication to individuals that have upcoming renewals and periodic reports that are due. So we will be sending out a customer communication to inform them about the fact that they have an account that has not yet been reactivated, and if they need to submit their periodic report or their renewal online, that they're going to need to reactivate their account before that takes place. We are going to be working across our collective teams, Benefits Cal and CalSAWS, to make sure that we're also not sending separate messaging out, so that we're streamlining the communication, because one thing we've heard from customers very frequently is, can you just synthesize it to make it easy for me so that I understand? So we're going to be working together on what that communication will look like. For right now, we're going to be doing a look at a quarterly view to ascertain whether or not we want to continue this for the next quarter as we get those reactivations closer and closer, because at some point of time, those individuals may just not come back onto Benefits Cal to want to use the system. So we'll be looking at it each quarter, but for right now, we're going to be sending these communications out, and it will be going out in individuals' preferred languages as well. We heard the commentary earlier about equity, so we want to make sure that those communications are going out in individuals' preferred languages. Okay, if we could move to the next slide, and I'm going to highlight a couple of items, but I know that owner and company have some details that they're going to provide on some of the remediation, so I'm going to leave it up to them. But just a reminder of a couple of things. In April, we introduced multi-factor authentication for individuals when they are linking their accounts. That was enabled on the 25th of April, and it was intended to add an extra layer of protection so that we know that the individual that's linking their account is actually tied to the same email that exists on their CalSAWS case. We've done additional remediations on Benefits Cal. Just a reminder that everyone has multi-factor enabled right now. That's across customers and CBOs. Owner is going to talk a little bit about the OCM activities and artifacts in the Benefits Cal update. But what do we have looking forward? So we are going to continue to look at additional remediations going forward. In one of the previous PSC meetings, and I'm going to call an audible here too, there was a request to look at our communications around incidents like this. So we'll be sharing out and collaborating with individuals about that communication process. And then the last thing is on the case linking MFA, that is only enabled to date for email. We had heard that not everyone is accessing their email all the time, and so there was a request to make sure that we made another channel available, and that is through phone. That will be going in this month to allow the phone as an access channel for linking through MFA. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Cindy.
Okay, thank you for that update. And is there any comments from the PSC members? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, thank you for that report. And we'll move on now to the CalSAWS migration final acceptance. Arnold?
I think we're on a Benefits Cal.
There you go.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going by the agenda.
No, you're right. We just had a little bit of a goof up on the deck ordering, so we're ready to go.
Okay.
All right. So on CalSAWS migration final acceptance, the purpose of the final acceptance is to confirm that all 650 requirements related to the CalSAWS migration have been met, that we've completed over 982,000 hours to successfully migrate to Calhoun counties, that the CalSAWS system is meeting performance requirements, and that all non-cosmetic defects related to the migration have been resolved. If we take a look at the areas where we will continue to have focus as part of M&O, it'll be on our activities surrounding reporting, imaging, and contact center. So those are outside of the DD&I approval for the CalWIN migration. The final acceptance process has really been a two-step process. First off, in February and March, we discussed with the steering committee as well as the governing board the criteria that we were going to use to request acceptance improve stability of the system. During April 2004, we reviewed the results of the evaluation period, which was actually February 1st through March 1st. And now, in this meeting, we're reviewing the final results and observations for the acceptance period and evaluating if that criteria has been met. With the approval of the final acceptance, it leads to the release of the final payment for the migration efforts to Accenture. We move on to the next slide. This overall provides an overview of the system performance as well as our adherence to the SLAs during the acceptance period, which was again February 1st through March 1st. I'm also happy to report that we are green across all SLAs for the months of February, March, and April. So we have had stability across all of our services. If we move on to the next screen. Dan, I'll turn it over to you to go over the QA.
Thanks, Arnold. Dan Dean, QA Project Manager. And this is a slide that you've seen before with some open boxes. We've come to the point where we have confirmed everything on the slide. The first three items there, which are the summary and corrections of each deficiency, lessons learned, and recommendations for improvement, are captured in deliverable 96, which is the CalSAWS Migration Final Acceptance Certification. We've gone through the requirements traceability matrix and reviewed the 650 requirements and how those requirements were met either in designs or code. And then that 30-day period that Arnold highlighted was the last box to check. And as you saw from his SLA slide, that's been completed. QA will continue to participate in improvement activities related to functional areas, technical, the performance of the system, as well as ticket backlogs. So that's ongoing through M&O as we work through some of the items that are on the list from the first three bullets. Arnold, back to you.
All right, thank you. We can move on to the next slide. So this brings us to our next step, which is to proceed with the recommendation for the project director to approve the CalSAWS migration final acceptance, which will lead to the release of that final payment to Accenture to close out the CalSAWS DD&I project. We move on to the next slide. This is an overview, as I already talked about, through our ongoing maintenance and operations activities. So we're going to continue to address the reporting adoption challenges, including system enhancements, and continue to support the counties with any questions they have around the reporting. In regards to the contact center, we're going to continue to regularly support meetings with each of the counties to address the tickets, the defects, and any questions, and also assist the counties with recommendations on continuing to improve and streamline the operations with the use of the contact center. We've already completed the deployment of ECCP to all of the counties that are on the contact center capability, and we're going to continue to in the ongoing maintenance and enhancement of the welcome and the authentication bots. We're also going to continue to focus on ForgeRock operational and architectural improvements as additional releases come up and additional capabilities are made available. The other component that isn't a bullet point on here is around the imaging, and that is we're continuing the rollout of imaging with Benefits Cal to use the optical character recognition for improved recognition of the documents being uploaded through Benefits Cal and classification for those. So with that, those are all the M&O activities that are continuing outside of the DD&I final acceptance. Cindy, with that, I'll transition back to you.
Okay, great, thank you. And any comments or questions from the PSC members? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, great, thank you for that.
Thank
And
you.
now I think we're moving to the Benefits Cal.
I think we have the CalWIN Implementation
Okay.
Support Services update.
Okay.
Right. All right, so I'll say, unlike Arnold, we are not at the point right now of requesting acceptance on the completion of CalWIN ISS services, and we'll share a little bit about why. Just a reminder, the completion report, we actually have completed the completion report that spanned all of the services that were covered within the contract spanning our 6 waves of counties. That's what was included within the completion report that was intended to certify that all of the activities tied to CalWIN implementation support services were concluded. That being said, as we've talked about in previous PSCs, that there has been one area in particular that the counties had been requesting some additional support, which was around reports. And so we had extended the duration of the support activities for Calwin ISS until we can conclude that particular item. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if we could move to the next slide. I wanted to share a little bit about some overall measures. So as it relates to the measures for tasks completed, risks, our requirements, deliverables, all of that has been completed. And we had conducted a number of look backs in terms of lessons learned that informed what we were doing in future waves within the Calwin counties, and conducted retrospectives as well that will carry forward for the 58 counties in terms of overall lessons learned around implementation related activities. If we could move to the next slide. If you look at it and just take a pause for a moment, it's a pretty significant and Herculean effort that took place with 16,000 plus workers that are added to the community for CalSAWS across a period of a year. If you look at, there were over 1,000 business processes that had been documented. We had work plans county by county. Counties were involved in completing a variety of tasks that were in the form of checklists, scenarios. We had multiple individuals that were spanning those 18 counties relative to on-site support. So this effort, I would say, should not go as many times as we have celebrated it. It should go recognized about the Herculean effort across the entire vendor community, the counties, as well as the consortium and the state and other partners in helping to get us to the point where we are today. We could move to the next slide. So I had mentioned about reports was the last item that we wanted to make sure that the counties were in a position moving forward to have an understanding of the support that was available and get a better understanding of what needed to be done to move forward. So the team had put together a CIT that aggregates all of the resources for support for reports in a location that the counties can know where everything is actually referenced. In addition to that, the team had been, as they've been working with the counties during the post-implementation support period, and the reports team identified a number of areas where documentation could be elaborated and enhanced for training. And that is in progress right now by the consortium training team, using the input from what had been collected with some of the extended support activities within the counties. In addition to that, the team had looked through tickets that had been provided through the ticketing process, and I know that there was a focused effort on making sure the counties were also understanding that ticketing process, as the transition from Calwin to CalSAWS may have left a little bit of a gap in that area. But looking at that and looking at with the reports team to triage what are those high priority items that were coming from the counties. And then the last item that was included in the activities relative to reports, which this will be continue to take place through the end of this month into early June, is the establishment, rather the development, but not the establishment, the development of a buddy system where we understood that the counties really would learn from one another, from the counties that had been on previously, the 40, could share with the 18 that were onboarding onto CalSAWS how they were navigating through and understanding reports and including them in their day-to-day operations. So that's where we are as it relates to reports. I'm going to turn it over to Dan for a view on where we are from QA relative to the ISS migration activities.
Thanks, Rachel. This slide looks familiar. There's a few differences. This is focused, of course, on ISS and the user as opposed to the system. There's also some open boxes, which point back to that previous slide. There were 5 reports, excuse me, that Rachel mentioned that capture additional best practices from the counties. Those reports last week at JPA, we were reporting we had about 30 items we were working through. We're down to single digits this week. We do have a follow-up next week where we're hopeful to close those out. The comments are related to suggestions in a few areas. An example would be process flows, where we can detail additional steps or just more clarity on items related to feedback coming out of the counties. So we'll be working to update that through the end of the month. At the very top of this slide, you are getting a May and a June close. June, we believe, is conservative and May is achievable. The last half of this slide are the activities QA continues to participate in for verification specific to user support. We do have staff who also go out to the counties when those activities are occurring. So that would include county site visits, review of future communications, and test of future enhancements related to things like WBTs and online help. So Rachel, back to you. You're on mute. There you are.
Yes, I am. I think, Dan, we're actually at the conclusion here, so I'm going to turn it back to Cindy.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from PSC members?
I have a question.
Okay.
On the reports, the 5 remaining reports, can you tell us what those 5 reports are that you're working, or are you going to cover that at the report status?
Just go back to the previous slide, please. Go back one. There's the list, those 5 sub-bullets of the documentation for consortium training. Those are the 5 major items that we're working through when it comes to that comment exchange.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Now we're moving to the benefits count. Third time's the charm.
Morning, everyone. This is a quick update on the ROI, the work group. I changed it up a little bit as far as its appearance for all of you, so that you know that we've been reporting out that we're waiting on the draft letters. So we'll continue working with CDSS and the HCS on those letters. But I just wanted to share, we now have built out just a couple of really high-level milestones. And as you can see, there's going to be some overlap, and there'll be some things that are concurrent. But just wanted to give you a sense that we know that there's still a lot of activity going on around this. We will need the policy letters for that and being able to figure out and do all that planning around it. The counties will need those letters for planning for your operational types of things. We also know that there's going to be county and our CBO and there's some readiness and some training that's going to be needed for that as a change and bringing it in and implementing. And of course, the other part will be incorporating any system changes that we identify on that. So again, they're all overlapping, but I decided to break it up a little bit to let you see a little bit of progress and as we continue moving forward. And with that, I believe Onar will pick up on our release highlights coming up.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everyone. Following the release of information highlights, workgroup updates, and the upcoming milestones Lynn just covered, we will continue the benefits call release highlights and briefly touch on the recent important system improvements delivered and critical items that are coming up this month in May and next month in the June release. In terms of the highlights, since we met last time with our steering committee, the April release 2404 deployed to production is planned with on the 25th set of items. And then, as Rachel mentioned earlier, case linking functionality enabled for customers via MFA via email verification, essentially the additional layer of security to protect customers' data against the bad actors. And this feature was delivered along with a series of artifacts, support materials, and OCM activities, which I will cover shortly. Additionally, an important usability improvement delivered for the document upload functionality in April as well, based on what we have been hearing from the UCDCX channels, as well as the counties, customers, and the stakeholders. That usability improvements was also part of the release 2404. And this month, with the May 2405 release, a further improvement is linking MFA functionalities coming up, as Rachel mentioned. We are actively working on to allow the phone MFA channel which will simplify the usability for customers, where they will be able to receive the verification link in a text message. This is targeted on May 30th, with the deployment on the May 30th. In terms of the June release, we have been working closely with the UCD stakeholder group to re-enable CFI qualify intent in the chatbot. And with the important inputs from the advocate partners, state partners, CWDA, counties, and with all these inputs galvanized, we are targeting to enable this in the chatbot with the June 2406 release. Next slide, please. From the awareness standpoint, as we look forward, the series of items we have been closely monitoring and tracking and working on for the upcoming months, and including some UC research items and policy items, based on also the items that we have been hearing from the customer feedback through the UCDDCX and the county's feedback. And the items you see here are including the customer dashboard improvements, further refinements on the usability improvement for the user experience overall, case linking, doc upload, account management, and ABOT research is coming up this summer, and implementation later this year. And other items listed out here on the right-hand side, you see the CAPI, CFAP expansion, homeless assistance, and the pre-populated SARS-7 are the items on the horizon that we are closely tracking and monitoring, working on for this year. Next slide, please. As Rachel mentioned earlier, next I will briefly talk about the OCM activities that we completed recently in the month of April, while we were enabling the case linking MFA feature via the email channel. And I will also briefly touch on what is coming up this month in May. Fundamental goal of these OCM activities are to make the experience as intuitive and easy as possible for the counties, community-based organizations, and the customers. With that objective, we completed a series of activities listed out here on the slide in the month of April, where the new FAQs have been created, announcements have been drafted, a brand new YouTube video for the case link MFA feature was created with closed captions in 20 threshold languages and posted to Benefits Club YouTube channel in the month of April. And from the communication standpoint, in order to help out the preparation activities for counties, as well as the community-based organizations, we created a fact sheet, a printable flyer, a quick reference guide, and a job aid. All of these items are completed in the month of April. And in terms of the training, live training sessions, recorded webinars facilitated in the month of April, to walk through the functionality on April 16th with the counties, so the counties can be proactively prepared on what to expect. And on April 17th, a webinar with CBOs with over 750 participants attended to the session. Following the implementation too, conducted daily hypercare calls with the counties between May 26th up until, April 26th to May 2nd, to answer any questions, clarifications counties may have or provide support. And I would like to thank our all stakeholders, regional managers, CWDA, the counties, and our advocate partners for their inputs and their feedback during the review cycles while we were finalizing these materials. Next slide, please. And this month in May, a new set of activities on the artifacts are being worked on right now for the CaseLink MFA via the text channel. Very similar set of activities you see here. And next week, a session is scheduled on the 20th with the counties to walk through the functionality and answer any questions, so the counties can be prepared. And similarly, on the 21st, a webinar will be conducted with the community-based organizations to help them get prepared, essentially. And the support artifacts listed out here will be worked on as well. And once the English versions are finalized, similar to the previous artifacts, the FAQs, the announcements, YouTube closed captions, and the flyers will be translated into threshold languages. Next slide, please. So switching to a different topic from the release highlights to maybe an update on the UCDCX standpoint. As you may recall, in multiple steering committee meetings, we had been periodically providing you some updates for a number of areas that we have been tracking in terms of the customer experience based on what we have been hearing through the UCDCX channels, along with the service desk tickets, help desk tickets, and what we have been hearing from the counties and the stakeholders as well. And today, I want to briefly update you on the top 3 items for case linking, account management, and document upload as it relates to what has been implemented recently and the items coming up and what we have been observing from the impact standpoint at the moment. Starting with the case linking on the slide, as it relates to case linking, as Rachel mentioned earlier, and I also touched on the release highlights, we enabled the case linking feature via text, via email verification in April. And we are also targeting to make usability improvements with adding an inline help text for customers, along with adding the MFA text feature with the May release. And since re-enabling the feature on April 26 up until May 12, there were over 63,000 case links have been established successfully. And during the daily hypercare calls we have been conducting starting April 26 up until May 2nd. Even after that, no issues have been reported so far. Things looking pretty smooth at this point, and since the case link functionality re-enabled on April 20. And as we look forward, we are going to continue to monitor these and keep our steering committee up to date. Next slide, please. So in terms of the account management, similarly, this was covered earlier during our security updates. Multi-factor authentication has been enabled for new and existing customers and PBOs for login since February. And while we are meeting our security obligations to implement the multi-factor authentication, in March, we still made a series of usability updates to make the MFA preferences and MFA enrollment functionalities features more intuitive and user-friendly for the end users. And after adding these usability features into the system, the number of calls, the call volume received from the help desk relative to updating the user's MFA preferences area dropped from 35 calls from the month of March to 5 in the month of April. Seems like less calls are being received in the tier 2 from the customer standpoint to get clarifications or the questions for this area specifically. But we will continue to monitor the trend for additional CX experience, like CX improvements for the usability standpoint as we look forward. So things are looking also good following the usability improvements implemented recently in this area. The next slide, please. So in terms of the document and the images upload area, so which is a very actively used feature in the application, where we see around 2.4 million documents and images uploaded on a monthly basis recently. You know, customers can upload a PDF document as a whole, or they can take photos via their phone and upload as an image as well. So collectively speaking, is a very heavily used feature in the application. And based on the feedback we heard through the focus group session, UCD sessions conducted with the users, we delivered 2 usability improvements in the January release for document upload functionality. It's primarily on the renewal and the periodic report related feedback we had received before. And in addition to that, a set of usability improvements we delivered in last month, April, with April 25th release, to make it more intuitive for customers, because the core issue here was customers to select their correct, more accurate document type when they have confusions. So with this usability improvements added to inline help text for each document type with some examples, this would help customers to, it would alleviate the confusion and ultimately improve the customer experience. Since then, I think as of end of April, within this year of 2020, calendar year 2024 so far, there were like over 10 million documents, images uploaded, and with 99.5% success rates. And then no tickets were received for help desks or tier 3 after the new improvements delivered in April 2024 so far. And the bottom line is, so these refinements looks like help the alleviate the confusion and ultimately helping out customers to improve their experience. Basically. Going forward though, we will continue to monitor these areas from the UCBCX standpoint and gather feedback from the counties, customers, our community-based organizations, and the stakeholders, and keep our steering committee group up to date with the progress. Next slide, please. Similar to the previous months, next we wanted to briefly update our PSC group on where we stand in terms of the usage and adoption of the application, documents, images, renewal standpoint in BenefitsCal in the month of April. So during the month of April 2024, the key highlights are, as you can see, like over 221,000 new applications submitted by the customers, 2.4 million documents uploaded in April, over 63,000 renewals we see here submitted, and also a positive trend in terms of the reported changes and the reports that 54,000 periodic reports in the month of 2024. And if you look at the big picture, since go live in September 2021, exceeded 4.5 million applications submitted by customers as of end of April. And we are marching towards the 5 million mark, which is pretty exciting news. I think next couple of months we should be able to get there. I think also wanting to highlight here, of these 221,000 applications, around 65% of them are submitted through customers and the community-based organizations. Around 30 to 35% of them are received through the Get Calfresh. I think this was an ask in the previous meeting, so I just wanted to share that data point as well as part of my updates. Next slide, please. Okay, next, we'll be handing over to Chris Vasquez for the OCR updates.
Thank you, Anar. So on our optical character recognition enablement for BenefitsCal, I have a brief update. Our phase 1 counties have been continuing to be performant and within the ranges that we projected for the volumes coming in for BenefitsCal. On the timeline, you'll notice that there's a gray chevron. That is representing an extension of our timeline by 3 weeks. So our new target go live date for our full 58 county phase is June 10th. That is going to enable us to continue our performance testing with our Highland partner, as well as it's also giving us a little bit more time to meet with each of our regions and have discussion around what the enablement actually is offering them as far as functionality, just so that they can make sure it's well communicated amongst their staff. At this point, we've already met with Region 6 and Region 5, and we have scheduled out meetings with Regions 1 through 4 over the next couple weeks. Additionally, we do have additional communications going out. We are, yesterday, the CIT went out. That was just giving everyone another update on all of the functionality in CIT form, as well as giving the updated date for go live to all those counties. And we're also communicating this in our imaging committee meeting as well. As we speak. Okay, and with that, we're excited for this to go live and bring this additional technology to BenefitsCal Captures. I'll pass it back to you, Cindy.
Okay, great, thank you for that update. Any comments or questions from PSC members? Okay, any comments or questions from the public?
Cindy, I had a question.
Okay.
It's Elaine Martinez.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you.
Okay. Owner, thank you for the presentation. There's a lot going on in the BenefitsCal realm, which is very exciting. I wonder if you could go back to the references to the text messaging.
Text messaging?
Yes, does that have to do with the MFA or? Correct. So MFA currently is enabled via email verification right now, as of April 25th. And this month with the May release that we are going to have on the May 30th, we want to add a phone channel. Then the customers can get a verification through a text message, so they can respond and get verified so the case then can be completed, essentially.
Excellent. Okay, that's, I just wanted to make sure that's what I understood. Thank you for reviewing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I apologize, Cindy. This is Sandra Bolin. I couldn't unmute myself fast enough. I appreciate all the information for Benefits Cal. I love the direction that it's going. It's very useful. But my question is for the ROI. Thank you for sharing the milestones. Do we have a potential ETA of when? I know we're waiting on some letters from the state, but is there a potential ETA on when to expect this going out?
Hi, this is Julia. I think until we get those letters and do the gap analysis on where we are in current functionality and the scope of the changes, we really can't give that purview yet, but we will as soon as we get that letter, which should be coming pretty shortly.
Perfect. And I do have one question about the text. Can users use more than one phone number? Or multiple phone numbers?
So it will be the phone number associated with your CalSALS account. I think I will phone a friend, maybe Arnold, you can help me with that. I think it's only one per case, right, Arnold, for the primary applicants in the CalSALS system. I don't want to provide incorrect information, but my understanding would be one phone number at this point for the text messages.
That's correct, a primary number. We could look at options for providing secondaries as well, so we can take that away.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from, or questions from PSC members? Okay, comments or questions from the public? All right, great. Sounds like we can move on to the next agenda item. Release and policy update.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Let's do release and policy for today. So I'm very excited because Teresa is sitting here beside me in the room from PHCS in our last conference unwinding. And we do want to give everyone a quick overview of where we're at and things that are actually going to continue beyond the online.
Thanks so much, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. Yes, it's hard to believe that we are at the last month of the continuous coverage unwinding. And while it technically is the end of the time period, we know that a few things are true. One, we still have some outstanding renewals that are left over from the unwinding that counties are still working through in order to get us through to sort of the finish line. In addition, there are things that we have learned to be best practices, especially in regards to some of our reporting, that will really continue on even beyond the unwinding because we think it's a good business practice. And so want to make sure that we sort of share transparently what's going to continue beyond this May 31st, 2024 end date. And first is really around the DHCS report. While our official reporting to CMS around the unwinding will sunset, we'll probably do our last report the month of June. The dashboard that DHCS has been publishing that gives a snapshot of where we're at around applications and renewals and some of those demographic information, that will continue indefinitely. Because that does contain county-related data, we want to make sure that you all have awareness of that. We know some of the counties do a really excellent job of sort of comparing the two sources to make sure that it's accurate, and so we want to make sure that that information is out there. One process we are very happy will be sunsetting, and I'm sure many folks are as well, is around the meds restorations. We wanted to make sure that folks stayed in coverage during the public health emergency and the subsequent unwinding, but now that those are ending, the need for counties to review the discontinuance lists are no longer required, and so that process did actually end on April 30th. Like I mentioned, we are going to be continuing a lot of the reporting, so we've included on the slide all the SURFRA requests that are going to continue that are directly related to that dashboard. We know that's the way that many of counties are accessing their data, and so want to make sure that we flag those for all of you. Not on the slide, but sort of hot off the press, We do know that there is a fast and furious information from CMS coming down around changes and best practices that they want to maintain. One of them is a pretty extensive final rule for streamlining eligibility. And so sort of just as the unwinding is ending, DHCS will be engaging all of our partners to really talk about what this streamlining means long-term and what we need to do to move forward with those particular pieces. We know that we also owe folks an all-county welfare director's letter on the unwinding. We've been waiting for some stabilization from CMS before we really issue that policy to ensure counties aren't going back and forth about what the unwinding really means. And so that is currently with our stakeholders, and we've committed to make sure that it's out by the end of May. And sort of the last piece associated with that is that from a federal perspective, CMS has extended the use of all of the waivers through June 30th of 2025. And so DHCS will, of course, be determining whether or not those extensions will exist from a budgetary perspective here in California. So that is what is happening with the unwinding, and I'll pass that over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Teresa. So a couple other highlights. We are continuing, I think we talked last month, the stable income waiver for non-Magi Medi-Cal. That automation continues through the end of this calendar year, and it'll be reassessed at some point as we get closer to that. Also wanted to highlight that we're continuing the collaboration and accounting calls that DHCS facilitates. They did move to bi-weekly. Those will continue as topics come up, and counties, I know, really love that forum, and I think there's one coming up this month around ICT. So as topics come up through various forums, we'll continue that collaboration as well. Next slide. Release overview, quick update. Yesterday was green light for our May release. We did, in fact, receive a go from all 6 regions, which is very exciting. This is a very large release. We want to thank all participants who were involved from design all the way through test. I think some of the stats on the slide yesterday was over 2,800 test scenarios across all our different entities and counties who were involved in the testing phase. So we are ready to go. What that means is this Sunday, the system will be down for a period of time in the morning as we deploy that code, and then we have a large number of staff who will be going through and clicking through and making sure that things are deployed as expected, and in readiness for your county workers back on Monday. We do have a number of changes in there, over 50 system changes, a number of policy items. I'm going to go through each of the 58 items right now. Some highlights there, definitely helping some of our most vulnerable Californians with some exemptions as it relates to our CalWorks population, some additional benefits to our at-risk homeless population, getting them homeless time benefits that's effective July 1. Some additional task updates going in to allow counties to have that configurability to set up their tasks and their task banks and track that work accordingly. The work will continue. We've got priority releases as well at the end of the month already queued up with some big changes going in as well. Once this release goes out, we will turn our attention and start testing our July release. So train just keeps rolling through with these changes. As we go to the next slide, actually, Jen, real quick, thank you. One point to note, I mentioned last time, so this is an audible, don't have a slide for it, that we have begun our release readiness discovery sessions with the county. So thank you all for the counties and regions who are able to offer up staff who I know are already very busy and wear multiple hats to attend these sessions. We are having a session every Tuesday this month. So we've had 2 already. We have great participation and engagement. I just want to highlight that. And it's very timely because we've just gone through the webcast. We've just sent out, release notes, major upcoming changes. The newsletter just went out yesterday. Thank you, Ashley, and the training team for that, the release newsletter. So we're covering all these topics with the attendees and looking at what's working well, what can be fine-tuned and refined to help the counties, really digest the material and the changes in the system to get everyone ready for the releases that we know come very quickly in council. So next month we'll have a readout for you all in terms of, assuming we can get it on the agenda, in terms of, you know, what were the findings and what are some of the changes that we're going to make throughout the rest of the year. So I did want to highlight that for you all as well. We are now going to pivot, and I'm going to invite Jason Oswald, who I believe is on the line. Jason, to give a quick update and take us on the work schedule. Hey, Jason.
Hi, thank you very much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Jason Oswald from the CalSAWS Application Development Team. I just wanted to circle back with everyone and give you an update on what we're doing with workload management, specifically as it pertains to the intake assignment and worker schedule effort that we kicked off earlier in the year. I know it has been a couple of PSC meetings since we've talked about this, so I wanted to start off by kind of just giving everyone a refresher on the work that we're doing before I give you my update. So essentially what this is we are effectively working on identifying requirements and to enhance CalSAWS to assist clerical staff and counties and eligibility workers in the assignment of intake and managing of schedules through the CalSAWS system. So that point in the time where, you know, where you're registering an application and you're going through and trying to associate that to the appropriate either bank or clerical or intake eligibility worker to work that. We know a lot of counties are using external tools for that, and we would like to functionality within CalSAWS to allow them to leverage CalSAWS and have to go to external places. So this was initiated by CERs from a number of counties. So San Bernardino, Monterey, Santa Clara, Kern are some examples. And really, again, the requirements are going to be focused on the automation and automating that process as much as possible, or at least providing the counties the tools they need in order to leverage CalSAWS to better align with their current business models. Moving on to the next step, or the next slide. So the process that we went through this was we went through really kind of a UCD approach where we conducted 6 4-hour regional workshops. We concluded those back in March. There were about 10 to 40 participants in each workshop. We had about 122 total participants, and we really did a deep dive into the different personas that are using this aspects of the application and really better understood their pain points, what was not working for them in CalSAWS, what they liked about their tool, really understanding you know, some of the county constraints that you have in terms of your labor agreements that really have implications in this area to understand where we need to go with this. This is a very unique portion of the application where it's you know, very much tied to county business process and how each individual county is leveraging the system. So we really need to get there and talk to you and start with where do the counties need CalSAWS to go in order to better facilitate their process. So we did have 44 out of 58 counties participate in this, so 75% of all counties we received feedback from. We also took the time to meet with each of the regional managers for the 6 regions to better understand what they're hearing out there, some additional areas that we need to focus on. And finally, we actually were able to go on 7 different site visits, which we actually concluded last month in April. So we were able to go and sit with counties, observe their operations, look at their registration process, look how they're actually assigning out work. We were able to see some small counties, medium counties, and large counties to really make sure that we were really understanding what we had heard during those workshop sessions. So you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So out of that, those workshops and those site visits, we actually received a lot of feedback that we had to come through and are still continuing to come through. But one of the things that, the first thing that we did is we identified the main themes out there. What are the areas that we need to focus on? What direction do we need to go in order for us to draft these requirements? So we did come up with 7 different areas that we are aligning our requirements to. The first 2 I will talk together, and they sound a little bit obvious, but this is the bulk of our comments, is counties are looking for a utility or tool to assist counties in scheduling the intake appointments, as well as determining the appropriate intake worker to assign So what we're really looking at doing is putting together a tool within CalSAWS that will really help facilitate this process, some sort of scheduling and worker assignment assistant. And counties operate in a couple of different models, so it needs to be pretty flexible on how it handles that. So as an example, some counties look to schedule or identify their intake worker based on worker schedule. Who's there on a particular day? Who's the first available worker? That's the worker that would get the appointment. Other counties have contractual agreements or labor agreements where they cap out the number of intakes a worker can receive in either a day or a month. So we need to approach it in that direction for other counties. So really, again, the bulk of the comments we had, about 33% or a third of them, were on having a tool that will assist counties in making those determinations, and in some cases automating it where appropriate. The other big area that we are focusing on is the simplification of the maintenance of worker schedule. Very big comment, entering in workers' availability when they have time off. Their ongoing schedules. Counties are really looking to enhance that, to make that a little bit more usable or user-friendly to help assist them in their business process. The other one that we received feedback is simplification of viewing of worker schedule. So this is really more of the perspective from the worker's eyes. So workers having more insight or better insight into what their supervisors has set for their schedule, how many appointments they have today, or when is their PTO, when's their time off, what metrics are they being measured against. So they know from a worker perspective what their expectations are, what their schedule is, to make sure they're in full alignment with the work that's in front of them. The fifth one is around the simplification of reassignment of existing appointments. So this is something in the system that where today you kind of do it on an appointment by appointment basis. What a lot of counties do, and I'll give you two different examples, is, if there is, counties will put appointments maybe into a bank, and then at the beginning of the day, they want to see the workers that have come in for the day, and they want to distribute those appointments out for the workers that are there on that given day. So they want a process to help automate that. Another example is, a worker calls off in the morning. We want to simplify the process of redistributing out their work for the day. So this is another big area of focus. And then the sixth one is related to the development of more real-time reports for tracking appointments as well as intake scheduling. So this is definitely a big portion of the feedback that we got, looking for more transparency and better metrics for supervisors to look in real time and see, what's in front of me, who's showing up for my staff. Do I have staff that, have appointments where there were no shows, and now I can move them off to doing other portions of work because, they don't have any work right now. Really being able to see how many things are scheduled for a staff to make sure they're in line with particular labor contracts. Another big portion of this. And finally, the last portion of this is really looking on training on new system functionality. Counties really want to feel more confident in the features that we are introducing as part of this. So they want to make sure that they're using the system to its fullest potential. So really making sure that we have comprehensive training and to give counties a better understanding of what we're introducing here. So these are really the 7 areas of focus that we are looking at drafting requirements on, and are actually well in the process of doing that. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. And this is where we're at right now. So we, are finalizing with the project right now, drafting those particular requirements, finalizing our synthesis. After that, we're actually going to be reconvening the work group collectively to review those requirements to make sure that, we have our bases covered. I want to make sure that everyone is clear that this is not replacing design. This is just giving a high-level direction of where we need to focus in the system. After we get done with these requirements and then set forth a roadmap, then we will get the work prioritized and begin designing these components. But as of right now, we'll just be reviewing the actual requirements with the work group, just to make sure that everyone's comfortable that we have covered all our bases and our needs. Finally, we'll refine the requirements based on that feedback, and then we will end by giving a final readout of suggested enhancements back to the project, as well as a roadmap forward, so we can proceed forward with getting that work scheduled. So with that, I would like to make sure I thank the counties that have participated in this. I know the counties have given a great deal of time and commitment to this. This is very important to them as well as it's very important to us. And it's really been very helpful and a great experience for us at the project to have this level of engagement from the counties. A lot of counties have opened their door to us, as well as having a very high degree of participation in these workshops. So we'd like to thank you for that. And we really are looking forward to providing that final readout back to the project. And with that, I will turn it back over to Cindy.
Great, well, it sounds very comprehensive, so thank you for that as well. Any comments or questions from the PSC members?
Hi, Jason. This is Sandra Bolin. I want to say thank you for coming out to Riverside as well, because we appreciate being able to share any feedback or sharing our processes to see what will be included. With this, what are your thoughts on it as you guys are looking at building this new process? Is it going to be something that's custom built, or is it something that you're looking at what other products are available out there so that they can be included within CalSAUS?
At this point, we're looking at doing custom work within CalSAUS. We feel that we're pretty closely aligned with a lot of the system features in the system right now, that we don't really need to look for any sort of products to assist with this. So yeah, we're feeling pretty comfortable we'll be able to handle this in-house and not have to look for other products at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, I have something back for Teresa and the unwinding. So just wanted to clarify on the meds restoration. Are those the do not touch lists that we were working on? Yeah. Okay, so yay. Yeah. So, and then the waivers. Just want to clarify, did you say those may still be pending in California based on budget considerations and that type of thing?
Yeah, just to say, we know from a federal perspective that they've given us authorization to go until June 30th of 2025. Of course, we just need to make sure that that's something that we're able to do here in California as well, and that all of the waivers actually make sense for us to continue doing also. I know Lisa mentioned the stable income waiver that is set to continue at this point. And actually all waivers, even though the unwinding is ending on May 31st, all waivers are still in place. Counties should still continue to use them. And if we are to make any changes to ending them at any point, we will be definitely issuing guidance, and we'll make sure that it's sort of done in the way that makes sense. So that you've got plenty of lead in time to know when they'll be potentially stopping.
Great. And then I noticed you didn't mention this, but I'm just going to throw it out there and don't have to have a long discussion if you're not prepared. But the performance standards and the med alerts and all of that we see kind of cropping up again. And I know there was some kind of an issue with one of the med alerts as well, where counties were getting tons of these alerts that I think weren't coming across accurately, or we were getting too many of them, I guess, and maybe working with CalSAUS on trying to get that. I don't know if you can provide any insight into that, or?
What I can say, and just kind of generally speaking, is we know that bringing back the performance indicators are definitely on the forefront of many of our counties' minds. And so first, I just want to say there's going to be a lot of engagement with counties. We know there are pieces, especially when we're talking about meds alerts, that are going to require some really critical dialogue between both sides and good partnership with CalSAUS to ensure that counties are not, one, doing work above and beyond what they need to be doing that's slowing down the critical work, but two, that also there's no errors being cited on things that are system-related issues. And so that engagement is definitely going to be happening and will be happening. There's lots of stuff happening with the budget that, will definitely impact sort of where things go with performance standards as well. So there's a lot more discussion to be had, and counties will be at the forefront of those discussions. And as we continue to have some solid things to bring to the table, absolutely we'll share it within this frame as well.
Okay, Yeah, thanks for that. It's a little, because it's a little daunting.
Absolutely.
Like, unwinding is ending, now boom, next month we're starting on performance standards. You've got to, where you come.
I was just gonna add too, and we are, CWDA is engaged as well, Christiana and her team, Jesse, as we start to talk through and look at med alerts, when does an alert start? So making sure we have those appropriate data points as well in the system for that.
Yeah, and would just agree that, and I would say that it's not even just CalSAWS. I think there's work that likely needs to be done on the DHCF med side to sync up things as well. And so, we're at the table to do those things as well. And just want to confirm, the other thing we're keeping is we found that it was extremely helpful for CalSAWS and DHCS to meet biweekly to talk about all of these kind of things, and that collaboration is going to continue indefinitely as well.
Okay, great. I know with the med alerts, we were a little not sure about, it could be marked as complete. How were you tracking to see if they were even completed, or, because really that has to be in the med system actually,
Correct.
Not even just CalSAWS, so lots of work probably to come. And that one particular alert was 0008, just to put it on your radar.
And I'll flag for our team as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. So any other comments or questions from the PSC? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, I think that ends that agenda item. And now we're on to contact center update.
All right, I will turn this over to Akira Muraguchi, the contact center team lead, and Mike Kambakian, the capability lead, to provide the update.
All right, thank you. This is Mike Tamakian, the contact center manager. Apologies for not being on video. I don't have the best connection today. So we have been making visits to the counties to provide personalized trainings and assist with county-specific process questions for contact centers. Since our last meeting, the team has visited Sacramento, Santa Clara, and we just wrapped up Tulare yesterday. We do have several upcoming visits in the few weeks coming here. As you can see, if your county is not listed here, rest assured we are going to be making our rounds to all of our contact center counties. That's kind of our goal. Next slide, please. The automated EBT card replacement continues to show great success. We continue to remain with a high success rate, which in turn helps reduce the amount of calls that would reach an agent. We have, this a little bit outdated, we have completed Sprint 6, so that's also completed. And we remain on schedule with our rollouts. Our goal is to complete all the county deployments by the end of June. All right, and I will pass it over to Akira at this time. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Yep, so this is Akira, the Accenture Contact Center Delivery Lead. I appreciate the opportunity to present to this group some updates for Contact Center in some key areas. One of the updates I have is regarding the Contact Center courtesy callback. So we are continually working with the county staff to develop solutions to support and improve the business processes. Today, courtesy callback first connects the agent and then, connects to the agent and then dials out to the customer. The team is currently working on a optional custom courtesy callback solution, leveraging the call customer first feature, and it is currently targeted to be available in the fall of 2024. In addition, we are also anticipating some new enhancements and features to become available from the AWS team within the next 12 months. Some of them that are directly would be impactful to our business processes, such as an updated wait time estimator, voicemail recognition, and also some enhanced courtesy callback reporting. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then an update with regards to eGain reporting. So we understand that reporting does improve visibility into the performance of the call center system and a vital tool to the overall success of the county call center operations. Our team is continuing to enhance our support for eGain reporting by providing project-hosted trainings and involving the eGain team in enhanced technical trainings for counties to give them better insights into county metrics and reporting. There have been some escalations regarding some of the metrics and performance of the eGain system, and we are working quite closely with the eGain executive team to reiterate expectations, understand timelines for issue resolution, and understand how we can improve monitoring and resolution of the performance and synchronization issues. We are already noticing some improvements with the outcome of the eGain team support, and we're going to continue to work with them to address issues in a timely and expedited manner. That was all the updates. Cindy, handing it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions from PSC?
Hi, Cindy. I have a question regarding the callback. So can you provide a little more detail on how that function works and how many times they will attempt to call the customer back?
Yeah, absolutely. So courtesy callback today, currently it makes sure that the agent is available first. So it calls the agent first, and then it makes an attempt out to the customer. If it does not connect to voicemail, meaning there's no voicemail available or it fails to connect to the customer, it's going to reattempt up to 3 times. If it does connect to a voicemail, then there are county business processes to leave a voicemail in that circumstance. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, and then I did have a question about the training. The trainings are underway on the reporting metrics. Is that taking place virtually? Is there a presentation going out, or do you know how those are being initiated?
Yeah, these trainings are happening virtually right now, and it's all based on county requests. And in some cases, we have seen an improved confidence in the reporting solution just with one training. In other circumstances, we might have like one or multiple trainings for the counties. In many cases, the trainings are very tailored to the county's needs. So we are offering and doing these trainings individually for the counties. And I know we're focusing on eGain here, but we're also doing these trainings for the Calabrio solution, so the workforce management solution as well.
Okay, great. So we'll send our request in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we meet with the counties. This is one area of CalSAWS where we meet with the counties on a monthly basis for call center. And so we do regularly discuss and offer up those trainings for the counties.
Okay, super. Any other comments or questions from PSC?
I have a question, Cindy. Kara, are you still working on issues that have come up with regards to synchronization of the reports between eGain and Amazon Connect?
Yeah, we currently have a backlog of open items that we're monitoring, and so we are working very closely with the eGain team to understand the root causes of those things, or maybe there's a misunderstanding of the synchronization that's happening. So we're continually working through that right now.
Thank you.
Hey, anybody else? PSC. Okay, and any comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, great. Sounds like we can move forward then to the next agenda item. Thank you. Which will be report status update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah, hopefully we're not into afternoon yet.
Oh, you're right. It's almost 10.
You have a couple hours you can entertain us. So.
Careful, it'll take you up on it.
By the time I finish talking, it might be nighttime. So this is a better update or a different update than what we've had in the past on reports. The last couple of times you've heard me talking has been focused on the process of gathering feedback, what we found, what those action items are. And now we're transitioning into our progress on those action items. So it's a good evolutionary step in this conversation towards starting to resolve and take off the board some of the problems the counties have been facing. This first slide, the left side should look very familiar. This is the where he said the things that we're doing, let's keep doing. They're working, they're going well. We do continue to have the various meetings and conversations. The committees are meeting. We're getting continued good dialogue and good feedback from the counties. The documentation that Rachel mentioned earlier from the implementation team is helping to provide some one-stop shops on where you get information, as well as our biweekly communication. And again, if you don't have access to that, or if you do, it is a one-stop shop for everything, whether it's a defect, an enhancement, a meeting minutes, everything is in there, published every 2 weeks, so you know exactly where we are on reports. And if you hear something from your staff and it's not on there, that means we're most likely not aware of it. Let's roll to the next slide. And this is where we're going to start providing some updates on the recommendations we saw in the last meeting. So this was our enhancing county support area. We heard Rachel talk about the buddy system. So we're going to start figuring out those roles and responsibilities, working with the RMs on how we pair the counties together and how they interact. We're also going to start moving towards establishing our report champions, which is going to be one or multiple of those. Again, that's going to be where we have experts identified throughout the state that can help us with report designs, report issues that come up. If a county's having an issue and they've gone through their buddy or their RM, maybe we need to bring in the champion to help us figure that out. Those are all underway. That doesn't mean we necessarily have engaged with the counties yet, but we're starting to work through our processes on how we're going to get that established. The next item was putting a tie together between our tickets and getting additional one-on-one support from the project. So we have seen counties starting to use that. Santa Clara was the first one out of the gate, where they had an ongoing back and forth ticket. So can we just move into this one-on-one support? And we were able to resolve it in one conversation. We've had several other counties go through since then, but this seems to be definitely moving in the right direction, that if you're frustrated or concerned, reach out and let's just have one-on-one conversation. The next item, Forum B, again, this is establishing a forum where the counties can have dialogue with each other or with the project. We haven't launched this yet. We're waiting till summertime to really get this going. The main reason for that is some of these other items I wanted to see if I could get the SCRs in faster. So I moved resources to get some of the system changes in, and we'll do this one later in the year. Moving to the next slide. And this is where we actually start to see some of the system changes. So the consolidation of reports, and this is one of our largest single points of feedback, where to produce an automated assistance claim or your county expense claim, and these are where you put your expenditures back to the state for reimbursement, you had to open up a lot of reports, and by a lot, I mean dozens, close to 100. So we are going through and consolidating those back together, and we have our first phase of that occurring in July. So it was our first available release, and we were able to hit that. And then we have the second half of that consolidation following up in 2501, which is the January release of next year. So we were able to get those in pretty quickly. The usability, and as well as the item at the bottom, we have not started yet. The usability we're going to start working on in July. I definitely want to get my ducks in a row before we engage in the counties and do some of that UCD research. A lot of what Jason spoke about earlier, I think, has paved a good path for us to emulate in terms of gauging with the counties and getting meaningful feedback, and how we then turn around and suggest a series of changes to those pages. So we'll be heavily relying on what Jason has carved a path for. The expanding page report, page export coverage. Again, this is where you can take what's on the report and immediately export it to a spreadsheet. This is kind of like our first line of defense when it comes to reporting. We're looking to start in this fall session, probably around the 09 or 011 release, so September or November. And that's where we're going to start adding that to more and more pages throughout the application. Page mapping coverage. This is used largely by our ad hoc committee, where you can click a button and see all the pages that are on that page, all the fields that are on that page, and then immediately see how they tie to the backend database. That is starting our first level of expansion in the July release as well. And we'll see a trickle or a small rollout of that with every release until we have it completely mapped. Again, the last item is introducing a whole new reporting capability of subscriptions where you can configure and get notified of reports being available. That is awaiting the IAPDU process, and we know funding is a difficult thing this year, so we'll keep everyone up to date with that. The next slide is some of the more specific reports that were coming up, or the more specific SCRs. As you can see, we try to pick off the most important one for this upcoming release, 2407. This is the changes to how applications are counted, particularly when there's more than one in a month, for the statistical caseload movement report for CalWORKS. You can also see that we have the rest of the initial or primary group targeted to be done by March, and you'll see these maybe slip into a couple early releases. We have the bottom one on the 237, 253, and 296, a core logic change for discontinuance, being currently targeted for May, and we'll continue to update these as we go through design. The next item, if we go to the next slide, is the two different areas. One is expanding knowledge and outreach. So we do have our first set of full, complete, detailed reports documents coming out at the end of this month. So these will be given to the counties through the biweekly meetings. And this is to hit exactly what the counties have been asking for since they went live. Detailed reports, what's the logic in there, where are you getting it from, when does it run, how does it run, what fields are you using, what pages do they map to. Everything you've been asking for will be in these reports, and we're going to start seeing them in May. From that point forward, we'll receive somewhere from 5 to 10 every other month from that point forward until we've gone through all the state reports, all the fiscal reports that tie back to the automated assistance claim, or CEC, as well as the most widely used management reports. The next item on there was communication. So we're still seeing this work. It's a constant work in progress. I don't know if I'll ever take this off, but I think communication is always changing and evolution of different ways and approaches. We know customer engagement is engaging with the counties and going through a lot of the governance and showing how different ways to interact with the project. So we're going to keep this on here probably all the way through till the end of time. Moving into ad hoc. We have the ad hoc roadmap coming out soon. This is going to show you the different tools and advantages and where you invest if you wanted to versus not investing, and why you would use one versus the other. I know Bobby, the RM, has been really engaged in reviewing that one, so we'll be having that come out shortly. The ad hoc training is still in development. And again, this is where taking all the different various documents and resources we have available, and instead of kind of drinking from the fire hose, let's put some structure in that and have a suggested start with these. Once you've completed that, move into these documents. And then I don't know if we'll do 3 or 4 different levels, but just kind of structure all that information for you. The review common ad hoc reports at this point in time, I'm pushing this off for the winter. We have a lot of growth and a lot of still dynamic stuff happening in the ad hoc area. And we also still have our ongoing conversations with the counties. So I want to give it a little bit more time and let that mature just a bit more before we start reviewing and saying, hey, which ad hoc should come back into the core application. So we'll schedule that for sometime in winter of this year. Let's go to the next slide. This is where we're starting on fine-tuning some of our project processes. And again, this is where we had received some feedback of whether it's an information request ticket or submitting CERs, what should my expectations be? When should I say, hey, I haven't heard anything, I should escalate? I actually started those conversations this month. So we will probably show this as started next month. I'm not sure we'll engage with the counties just yet, but we definitely want to meet through with the RMs and the biweekly group and make sure that we're all on the same page with both that item as well as our automation expectations. And this is going to get into where should a county expect to go to ad hoc? Where should a county expect that the system would pick up that for automation? And a lot of that depends on how many counties and how wide a usage we would see of something like that. And the last thing here I'll leave you with, again, this was my shorter updates these days. We do have our next survey in development. So I promise it won't be 90 minutes to finish this survey, but we will finish something a little bit quicker, probably in the 15 to 20 minute range, and start to see how we've progressed from our initial survey that we did last year. And that'll be coming out probably towards the second half of this summer. And Julia, that's my update on reports.
Okay,
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. That was, very, very good highlights here. So any questions or comments from the PSC?
Hi, yes, Elaine Martinez from Ventura. Thank you, Sean, for this update. The slides were very easy to follow, so thank you for that and all the work that you're doing in this area. This is great to see how things are going to be looking for the next, 6 months or so. I did have a question on slide 49. You made mention to the consolidation of the reports, and you made a reference to some type of a cadence, but I didn't catch that. Some every other something.
So on the consolidation, we're going to do, they're called the summary reports, like the rolled up ones without the details. That's what's going in 2407. Then in 2501, which is 4 months later, or the second release after that, that's going to be where we go into the detailed reports and consolidate those as well. The cadence, I was more referring to the page export capability, as well as the page mapping. We're going to be hitting that every release until we've covered the breadth of the application, that the export and page mapping is complete on all the applicable pages there. But we should be done with the consolidation pretty quickly.
Okay.
Hey, Sean, why don't you give a quick overview of the user impact of the page mapping and export and what the counties will see from that and what they'll experience?
So let's start with the export. And this is something that it was an aha moment in our conversation with the counties, is that on certain pages where you execute a search, so let's say I'm going into issuances and I want to see everything that was issued yesterday, what that will return is a series of rows onto the page, and you can go 25 by 25 by 25 through that list. We can at times on certain pages put a little red icon at the top of that. You click it and it just opens up in Excel for you. So essentially that search page has become a report for you. You don't always have to go over to the reports and then search for this category or that category and this type. The search pages are effectively reports as well. The feedback we got, which was an aha, is why isn't that on every search page in the system? Which we hadn't heard that great of feedback yet. So that was an easy take back. Let's get that and start adding a certain number of pages with every release, kind of spreading that effort over a series of months. And we're going to start doing that with probably 09, maybe 2411. Now, the ad hoc side of this with the page mapping is if I'm on a certain page in the application and I'm trying to build an ad hoc of, let's say, applications, and I'm looking at the applications in the system and I want to know where that data came from, there's an icon at the very top in the utilities nav where you click that and a secondary window will show up and it'll list every field on that page, a definition of that field, and then what table and column from the database where it was retrieved from. So the ad hoc community uses that to go, okay, business side, you want these fields on these pages. I click that button. Now I know exactly where to get it from the database, and I know exactly how to build an ad hoc off of it. Some of the feedback we had gotten during the conversations is there's holes in it. There's some pages where you only have it partially mapped or you don't have it mapped at all. This is an effort to go through, again, a small amount of hours every release and start closing that hole until the entire application has gone through that mapping and the ad hoc community can use it everywhere.
Yeah, that's a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions from PSC?
I have a question. Sean, thank you, by the way, for all the progress so far on the reporting. The updates you have on the recommendation, is the ad hoc committee being updated as well? Ad hoc reporting committee, or whichever committee is working on those reports?
Is there a specific recommendation you're thinking of that we should bring over there?
No, I was just wondering how the committees are being updated and if the PPOCs are included in those updates.
So we're more or less pretty consistently engaging through that biweekly meeting now. It's about 100 to 150 people, sometimes as much as 190 now. But we're pretty much using that. There is huge overlap with the ad hoc community, though. Particularly the last few releases or last few meetings, it's become pretty evident as our conversations have moved towards ad hoc. But I can't say any of these we're going directly to the ad hoc work group with, who are actually meeting right now. But we're mostly focusing through the biweekly, unless you think we should go through ad hoc. If you've heard that.
No,
feedback.
no, I just needed to know where the communication was going to so that we can better figure out what's going on within our counties in our region. Thank you, Sean.
Sure thing.
So that was a good, this is Cindy, hi Sean, and that was a good kind of lead into what my question was gonna be, which kind of concerns the committees, or is around the committees, because we do see a lot of overlap, and yet some items are specifically, let's say, state report focused. And so, at least in our county and maybe in several counties, you have specific people who, let's say, just work on state reports. They're really our fiscal report people. And then you have the other half of your team possibly that's just doing county reports, or maybe more towards ad hoc, or even just more, like say the 237, or just something that's not necessarily related to the claims. So I guess my question or conversation is, has there been any consideration of splitting up some of those work groups so that you could get the right people in the room discussing the items? Because I see here you're kind of evaluating the committee members. So I was wondering, because we may have a fiscal person on the committee and they're going to talk about a wins report, for example, that maybe, you know, or CFED or something that you're not really all that familiar with, because they really just work on claiming and fiscal reports. So I was just curious, it sounds like maybe you're moving towards the biweekly structure, which gets, like you said, a whole wide scope of attendees. But just wondering if you ever thought about maybe somehow splitting up some of the committees so they were more fine-tuned to the topic.
Can I take that, Sean, real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, and you can chime in. I think that's a broader and a very relevant conversation, right? What we're doing, not just in the reporting, but overall, looking at who's in the room, what's the scope of those conversations, so that, one, some counties have very limited resources, right? So splitting it up means also having one person possibly in two different meetings. So we want to be cognizant of that. And so I think that he spoke about that as another conversation, but scoping those out and reevaluating those is definitely on the roadmap for us in the next.
Good. Yeah, and sometimes attending the biweekly meetings will be something that just, oh,
Right.
we had a concern about this, or, you know, and so usually that is a good place to, as a catch-all kind of, but just, yeah, I'm glad it'll be looked at for the future of that.
And just for some historical perspective, we did originally, when we formed the committee, it was one reports committee, including some ad hoc support back then. And I'm going back 10, 12, 14 years. We then split ad hoc off into David Brune and his team, and they meet monthly as well. We have also, starting January, spun back up the management reports committee. So anything that is not state and fiscal has already been separated off into its own group. I think the question would come down to, do we separate out the fiscal side from the state report side? And I could see some positive or negatives, because sometimes those do overlap and have to reconcile to each other. But I think I can take this also back to Karen and Michelle and say, hey, this is some of the feedback. Have we contemplated this? And I can't say we have recently, but I'll bring it back to Karen and Michelle and start having a conversation there.
Yeah, could be, yeah, I think, yeah, it could be both, like, pros and cons, like you said. Okay, any other comments or questions from PSC?
This is Rachel from Region 3. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the update on the reports and the efforts that are being made, especially as we're going into pretty tough financial situations. You know, for small counties, like most of the counties within our region, we have to make hard decisions about the resources or the staff that we have, and where, what projects or what duties outside of their normal duties they can attend to. Quite often, you know, we might have one person on several committees. And so really appreciate that there's going to be some thought put into whether or not we should create additional committees and what that's going to look like. I know, and I'm sure it's not just small counties. Large counties too, probably looking at what we can reasonably afford to have staff doing. But I do appreciate the update. I'm excited about the work that's being done with reports, and I really wanted to thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from PSC members? Okay, we'll move on to comments from the public.
Cindy, I have a question.
Oh,
On slide 51, on the create reports documentation, on here you indicate that the first set of documents are going to be distributed at the end of May. Could you tell me what reports that includes, or did I miss that somewhere else?
I did not include that, and I don't have that list available to me right now. We're hitting the state reports first, but I can provide that for you afterwards. But we're going to bring it back to the bi-weekly meeting and say, did we hit the template that they had previously agreed to? And if we did, then we can start rolling forward through with everything else. But I can get that list.
Thank you.
Was that Peggy?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
okay, any other comments or questions? From the room or from the public? Okay, thank you, Sean. We appreciate all of the information on that. And it's still morning. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is Fresno AI Initiative update.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. My name is Sarah. I am the project manager and functional lead for this generative AI implementation for Fresno County. So I will go over sort of a quick solution overview. Currently, contact center agents, they take detailed call notes after each call to summarize, what happened on the call and what was the resolution. And so with this generative AI implementation, we are leveraging Gen AI to take the transcript of the call and then automatically populate a draft of those call notes for the agent. So the agents, instead of manually creating them, will be able to review, make edits to, and adjust the generated summaries before saving them to the CalSAS system. And so the main benefits and objectives we're trying to accomplish with this implementation, I'll focus on the reduced post-call wrap time. So really what that means is the time that it takes agents after a call ends to complete those notes. Maybe they have additional items to do in the CalSAS system before they move on to the next call. And so with this implementation, we're really trying to see a reduction in that post-call wrap time because the agents won't have to manually create those notes from scratch. And so as you can imagine, if we're saving a minute here or there, maybe a few minutes on each call, if you extrapolate that to the full contact center, it can result in really impressive time savings for the county and the contact center. And then we also have increased call summary consistency there as a benefit as well. And so what we mean by that is that the same tool will be creating these call notes with each call. And so they will remain consistent and be easy to, read through, and they will have all of the critical information that are required for these notes. And if we move on to the next slide, we can talk a bit about the project timeline. So this is a very fast-paced timeline. We actually kicked this off at the beginning of March, so just a couple months ago. And right after project kickoff, we went right into designing the solution. It was really critical during the design to seamlessly integrate it into the current process. And so it was very important to the team that we're not adding new clicks for agents, things like that. It really truly is seamlessly integrated and automating this process for them. And then solution development has been happening in April and May. We're currently in the testing phase right now, which will go through June. And then the initial go live for this implementation will be at the end of June on the 27th, which will be followed by 2 months of post-implementation support. And on the next slide, we'll look at some metrics that we will be capturing from this solution. So as I already talked about on the previous slide, we will be monitoring that average post-call wrap time, hoping to see a notable decrease there. Similarly, average handle time, that is the entire amount of time that a contact center agent is talking with the caller, finishing those call notes, making changes in the CalSAS system based on the outcome of that call. And so we're also hoping to see a reduction here. Additionally, we will be sending out to the contact center agents in Fresno surveys very regularly as this is going live, as well as having focus groups. And we're really trying to gather a lot of real feedback from workers to understand how the solution is working for them and any possible improvements we could make. And then that bottom line of metrics, I'll kind of read through those, but feel free to ask me any questions you might have on them. We'll be tracking the total number of summaries generated over time, the average summary generation time, and then the % of summaries that are generated within 60 seconds. But yeah, that is what our little sneak peek of this Fresno very exciting Gen AI implementation. And so I'll pass it back over to the moderator.
That's really great. Any comments or questions from PSC members?
Cindy, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Sarah, when the summary is generated, does it go on the call log or the journal entry in CalSAS?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it will populate as a draft onto the call log detail page. And then once the agent, they have a chance to review it, change it, and save it. And once it's saved, it will get published to the journal entries.
It will. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question on that. This is Cindy from Region 4. Does it also track the time then, because I'm not sure, reading these metrics, that the worker may have had to make some edits or changes to the script that was generated?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we will be tracking how many agents are, saving it immediately or maybe making adjustments to it before saving. So we will be tracking that. However, we'll have to find the balance between, our agents changing the summary because it's actually inaccurate or missing information, or is it more of a preference thing, or maybe a name was misspelled or something like that. So, but yes, we will be tracking how much these summaries are being edited by agents before being saved.
Great, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I see LaShonda, stand up.
Yeah, hi, this is LaShonda from Region 6. I just wanted to know, were there any other counties involved in just the discussion and the design besides Fresno?
Well,
yeah,
hold on a second. LaShonda, just to give a little perspective on this, this is a pilot that Fresno County is paying for. I know that Michael raised his hand, and wanted to closely monitor this in the future for LA as well. But this is specifically a pilot for Fresno, so this was specifically that team that was involved in the design of it. Obviously, it has scalability, and that's ultimately the goal, but the short answer would be that it was focused strictly to Fresno.
Oh, great, thanks. Because it looks like a very good pilot, so I'm very interested in the results. I'm glad that Fresno put forth that recommendation. So I'll just look forward to the outcomes, and thanks so much.
Hey, Jen, just for a second, if you go back to slide 55. One more. Oh, I did the screw up thing. Go up to 56. Okay, back to 55.
One more.
All right. It was right. It was 55, Show up late, don't know slide numbers. If you look at this and you see March of 2024, for those of you that went to the CalSAS conference in San Diego, and the Gen AI panel that discussed that. From that panel on January 26th of 2024, Fresno County said, I think we might have some dollars to be able to spend on this. We want to do something. Can you help us? So between January 26th of 24 and March, the county purchase was created. They got buy-off by their county council to sign off on the procurement rules. Our partners at OTSI approved the APD that they approved, sort of negotiated that with Accenture and doing the estimate and scoped that out so that it could be kicked off and delivered on this accelerated time frame. So again, very impressive on how quickly everybody moved on that. It's being exposed to say, here's all the metrics, here's all these types of things, because these types of things are the future, but we don't have a funding mechanism right now today for that. As people might look at that and say, I want to be next, it may have to be entertained through a county purchase. So this is really informational, tracking, transparency. We just appreciate Fresno County really stepping up and doing that and being able to show that to everybody, because these are the types of things that are coming and that may need adjustments after pilots.
Sandra, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for sharing. This is exciting news. Hopefully everything goes really well. And when it's ready, we would love to see a demo, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think we are planning in June to do something like that for the June 27th meeting.
Thank you.
Great, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was very exciting at the conference to see what, is possible. Wrapping up all my emails was another good example. Okay, any other comments or questions from the PSC members? And any comments or questions from the public? Okay, great, thank you, Sarah. That was a really exciting proposition that we look forward to. And the next agenda item, we're moving on to M&E risk.
Yes, another exciting topic. So if we look overall from our risk trend, we are remaining steady with our number of risks. In the conversation today, we will be focusing on those that are medium only. We will not cover the low risks, but we are actively managing all the risks that are hitting the project. So if we move on to the next slide, I will ask my friends to join me and start out with Holly with risk 102.
Thanks, Arnold. So this is an ongoing risk related to our funding. We continue to practice one at a medium level, given the budget situation. We were able to confirm that our CalSAV project budget aligns to the May revise. So the expectations were met there. We did have two premise items that did not align in the May revise to what we were expecting. One was the CSAP, that funding was removed. And then the benefits Cal Parity would get Cal Fresh funding was not separately identified, but we're working with CDSS to determine how that will be funded of the overall. So continuing to monitor, continuing to work through these variances, and that's our update.
Thank you, Holly. And then Peggy, could I have you give us an update on 203?
Yes. So risk 203 is entitled Project Communications Must Continuously Evolve, Otherwise Stakeholder Audience Needs Will Not Be Met. Our teams continuously review and enhance ongoing communication effectiveness across multiple areas. Of note, there are 2 strike teams and 2 other focus areas that are being managed by customer engagement and our production operation team. Our web portal strike team drafted guidelines for web portal maintenance that were reviewed by PMO, who will in turn work with the customer engagement and tech teams for the next level review. Our communication strike team is in the final review round for a revised CRFI template and associated procedures per the feedback that's been received by counties and internal teams on some of the improvements that were recommended. We're also working to revise the CIT template and procedures, and fine-tuning those are happening now. As we have shared previously, the customer engagement team, via the county feedback and internal meetings, have identified some activities and resources that were deemed beneficial for the counties, which has included several M&E, maintenance and enhancement governance roadshows. Ticketing was just last week. The SCR life cycle sessions just concluded last week. Throughout May, we're supporting the release management team in the county release readiness discovery sessions that are going on. And this will also include Benefits Cal. On June 13th, the RMs will present the RCM SME orientation session to support new staff who are in these roles, and will also provide an opportunity for refresher for other staff that are currently in the roles. And in July, we're going to be holding our final M&E Roadshow, which was focused on governance. That final roadshow is on release readiness and county validation. For the fall, we're targeting transitioning to more of a quarterly hot topic session, most likely looking at the second week of the month. We'll be covering topics that counties have indicated that are important to them. These sessions won't necessarily be facilitated by the customer engagement team, but rather by project team members, county subject matter experts, and counties who have items to share with our customer engagement team providing support. And lastly, the production operations team updated the format of the daily health report, which was implemented, and consideration is given for additional metrics for inclusion in that report. Back to you, Arnold.
Thank you, Peggy. Lynn, I'll ask you for 246 and 290.
Sure. So, the perceived gaps in functionality for the Get CalFresh may impact the adoption of Benefits Cal. We're continuing to meet with CDSF. We'll be focusing on items that are still outstanding out there, trying to look at prioritizing and timing for those types of outstanding items. So we'll need to consider any of the impacts as a result of the budget as well, and what that may mean, and the timing associated with it. So it is definitely something that is very much a work in progress, and trying to work through those items and get everything corralled. So there's been lots of things that have factored into it. We've put in some changes that help, and they're helping with that adoption, and then just working with the state. The next item, the ROI, I had touched on it earlier today with the work group and the progress, and showed the milestones. So we definitely are continuing to monitor this as well.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Sean, if you could cover 296 and 297 around the reports.
So 296 and 297 are two very similar items. The first one, 296, is about fiscal reports, in-state reports, as well as 297 is focused on ad hoc and management reports. For 296, we continue to move forward and present to different groups our executive outcomes. This group has already seen at the last meeting. We had our targeted report session for the CF 296, which is our CalFresh statistical or caseload movement report. We also, as we discussed, continue to have our biweekly meetings. We talked about the consolidation of fiscal reports that are already happening for 2407, and again, the second phase in January of 2025. We also had their highest priority SCR, which we also mentioned earlier in the update for the 237. That is slated for the July release as well. And again, I mentioned the survey is coming again this summer. Moving on to 297, we have started up the monthly management report support meetings. So this is similar to the biweekly meetings that occur for state and fiscal, but is monthly and targeted for the opposite end of the report. So it's just focused on management reports. We also have gone through the various documentation that we heard from Rachel and the implementation support team, pulling that together. They had that CIT 0053-24 go out on consolidating and navigating all the different support resources. We talked earlier this release that the page mapping coverage will also be starting to get updated with 2407. And we've shown pretty good progress against all of the open action items and outcomes from the meetings for both of these risks.
All right, thank you, Sean. Moving on to 300, this is in regards to the stability of the CalSAWS Enterprise Identity and Access Management Services provided by the ForgeRock platform. We have had stability of those services as evidenced through the SOA metrics that we reviewed earlier on around final acceptance. We continue to look to evolve as well as adopt additional security measures to continue evolving the CalSAWS ecosystem security stamps. So we will continue to leave this open as we track through those actions. Michelle, if you'd like to cover 301 around FSED.
Sure. So this one was on the lack of an FSED integrated test plan and schedule, that we didn't have those that may impact our API delivery for later this year. So in the last few weeks, the CARES and the CalSAWS team have done a great job at getting the test plan documented, and the integrated schedule continues to be updated as we move through the effort with the CARES team. So we're going to continue to monitor this item. We are in a good place right now with these documents, and we're proposing to move this risk to low.
All right, thank you, Michelle. And then finally, risk 302 involves potential dissatisfaction and frustration with the courtesy callback configuration and e-gain reporting for contact center. We heard Mike and Akira give an update regarding the actions that are being taken with e-gain around that, as well as the fall enablement for the customer callback. So actions are currently underway for both of those items. We'll continue to address the defects, and we will continue to monitor through this risk. With that, Cindy, we can turn it back to you for questions.
Thank you, and that was very exciting. Any comments or questions from PSC members? We have a question, Michelle, on the FSED. So it's tightly integrated with the CWS CARES implementation, which is 627, something like that.
Yes.
Is there plan for that to still move forward in case the CARES doesn't move forward, or is it just directly dependent on?
Yes, dependent on CARES moving forward.
Okay, so you're just, that timeline will just be this timeline?
Yes. They're making really good progress.
Okay.
Yeah, the APIs are on track for delivery, and then we'll look in 2025, it will be a testing phase. Counties and back and forth between projects.
Okay. And then will it incorporate a CalSAWS committee at all that would?
Right now, we have a work group that's working on the FSED APIs, so similar to how we did tasks and how we're doing CFAP and WITIP, we have a work group. But we are doing periodic updates to the foster care committee, and we'll be doing some demonstrations for them as we move through changes.
Great. It's moving forward.
Yeah. And Michelle, one quick update. So in summer, we're going to kick off kind of an OCM. That hasn't started, but it's coming because we know there are, lots of touch points with social workers, eligibility workers, and so we'll be working through kind of what is the approach and the plan, and then sharing it, and that needs to be coordinated, obviously, across systems, and then, we'll start to see more topics in that area as we move forward. And this year is very heavy on the development side of things and getting those APIs that are coming along.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else with comments or questions from PSC? And any comments or questions from the public? Looks like then we'll move forward to the procurement update, which is Holly.
So, yeah, filling in for Tom this morning, just a quick update on, first, before we talk about benefits Cal, the M&O re-procurement. We are currently tracking through the federal review and approval of the negotiated contract, where we have received FNS approval, still awaiting CMS approval, and concurrently, the team is working through the appeal process. For benefits Cal, procurement time, the timeline is noted on the slide. We are waiting on the federal approval of the RFP. There again, we've received the FNS approval, awaiting CMS approval of the RFP, on track to release on May 29th. It's then followed by the proposal, and the vendor community would be due back at the end of July. They can't hear me at all?
We can hear you, Holly, but it's very difficult to hear you.
Okay. So just again, real quick, the M&O rate procurement, we're on track, getting through the federal review and approval process. And then for the benefits Cal, also going through federal review and approval for the RFP, on track to be released on May 29th.
Is that understood?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Any questions or comments from PSC? Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, thank you. And then we'll move forward then on the return mail overview, and I see Dawn.
Thank you. So from the return mail perspective, we were asked about feedback from other counties and, what is our status and where were we. So I wanted to really start out by letting you know who was on the return mail service so that you can speak with other counties directly if you are interested in doing so. Currently, 7 counties have implemented return mail, and you can see them listed there, San Diego being the one who's been on board the longest since July of 2023. And San Diego has presented at a number of meetings in terms of their feedback on the service. Lake in December, Solano in January of 24, Placer in February, Los in February, Napa in April, and Beach just joined us in May. We do also have 4 additional counties targeting to come on board in the summer. They're hoping to come on board in July if all the paperwork gets completed. I did want to give you an update on the results. In terms of return mail, we have run, at this point, over 4 million addresses and envelopes through the service. This was at the end of May, which was the 3.3 million that you see there that came back as being completed, deliverable. The return mail, we are averaging over the period then from July of 23 when San Diego started through the end of April, 4.6% that are actually returned, as in the envelope physically comes back. Some of those, the counties have chosen to have them come back to their own mail center, and in other cases, they are having them come back to the Central Print Return Mail Service. And then 5.47%, the gray slice there on the chart, are ones where the U.S. Postal Service is recommending that the address be updated, but they anticipated being able to deliver it. So at the time that we presented the address, which is the time we got the address, we actually felt that the U.S. Postal Service returned a response that said that they would deliver, but they would have liked to seen the address be formatted differently. If we go to the next slide, I just want to remind everybody quickly the process so that those numbers make a little more sense. Again, the night we receive the mail to be printed and mailed, we go to the U.S. Postal Service directly, get an answer from them as to whether they believe that the envelope will be deliverable with no problems, whether an address should be updated, or whether they will be sending it back. As in, we know that night that the letter is going to come back 6 to 8 weeks later. We then journal that right into the case and say, yep, we know that letter's coming back, and if you want, we'll also journal the ones that need